Welcome to Harder Than It Looks, Parking Uncovered, a podcast that illuminates real solutions to common problems within the parking industry. I'm your host, Brian Wolff, CEO of Parker Technology, and in each episode, I'll introduce you to real parking pros that will bring their own tips, tricks, and best practices to manage what we all know is harder than it looks, parking a car. All right, let's get going. I think most of you all know who I am by now, so I don't think I need to introduce myself. But my esteemed guest next to me, what I would like you to ask you to do to kick this off is I'd like to ask you to give us a little bit of your background before you got to parking. It's going to be important for the follow-up question that I have for you. So tell us who you are, what you do for your respective companies, and then give us a little history. Give us three to 4 or 5 minutes of history. Bob, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. So Bob Murray, I'm the CTO at CampusParc. And actually the organization I'm running now is called Technology and Business Solutions. So I also run the PMO. And it's really because as we look at technology and technology trying to solve problems, we're able to understand business problems and then come up with a solution for that. And the solution isn't always technology. And that's why we added the end business solutions, because sometimes it really isn't technology that you're looking for. Prior to coming into parking, which I thought I'd never get into, I was actually a software developer. So I did a lot of software development in different areas, foreign exchange trading, healthcare IT, as name a couple. And this is only the second job where my product wasn't what we sold. So I'm very astute in how to develop software, sell software, the processes needed for software. And I think that actually has been helping me out here in not just at CampusParc, but also in the parking technology in general.
Great. James?
Hi, I'm James Paden. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Parker Technology. So I'm responsible for our product software. So I lead the software and engineering teams. And similar to Bob, I spent about the first 10 years of my career in software development, primarily in B2B SaaS applications as well as e-commerce. I then sort of moved in more the product strategy, product management side of things, whereas less around doing the building and more around what are we building? Why are we building that? And I like that because I get to scratch like both sides of my brain. I still get technical. I build prototypes, write a little bit of code, but I also talk business, and very similar to Bob, trying to solve problems and figure out, okay, if this is where we are today, where do we want to be 5 years from now? How do we get there? What do we need to build to get there? What order do we build and to get there to have a smooth transition, all of that kind of stuff. So I love both the business and technical side of things. And that's sort of where I've built my career. And I've only been a parker 6 months now. So new to parking. This is all very new, very fun. I'm loving the industry.
Yeah, that's great. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, how much does your prototype actually resemble when you give it to the coders? Because that's how I judge how far off I am now. Because it looks nothing like what I started with when I say, here, try this.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, so I was leading the witness just a little bit. One of my core philosophies, I've written columns on this, is that in order for somebody to come into the industry from the outside, they have to be paired very directly with somebody who has parking expertise, or they will struggle. I believe they will struggle because you cannot possibly know all the nuance of parking. But what we definitely need new outside talent to get parking to get moving. And so I wonder, Bob, you've been here 8 years, 9 years?
8 years, yeah.
So I wonder, the core components of what you brought with you and what you use every day now in your parking world, knowing what you knew or knowing what you know from your previous experience.
Yeah, sure. So a lot of it has to do with, I'd say, again, strategic applications. So the strategic use of technology or non-technology to solve issues and problems that we're having. And it's not always just to solve a problem. Sometimes it's to gain some operational efficiency is another thing we can do. But that wealth of knowledge, what it really helps me with in the parking area, because you kind of alluded to it a bit, is I find that the parking technology is still behind the times. It really hasn't come up to speed like other markets have. If you look like marketing, right? Now we have omni-channel, we have, data-driven marketing right towards you. You can look at the finance industry, right? And the finance industry has new ways to pay. We don't have that. We haven't made that leap yet. So we're still sitting on some technology that's a bit older, and that's actually a challenge. So as we're trying to, we call it technical debt. And as a large company now has this technical debt, it starts to cost more money to be able to get out of that technical debt. But that's not just the money to get out of it. It's also then the talent you can attract, right? So COBOL is a programming language. You may know it, you may not. I see some of the gray hairs out there with me going, yeah, I know that. Right. You can't hire a COBOL programmer now. You're not going to get out of college with new ideas thinking, hey, I want to go program in COBOL. Or I want to go create a SOAP interface. You can look that up. That's from the, like, I say 2000s and still active today in some parking technology software.
We build SOAP integration still.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name names.
No, well, there's more than one. So, yeah. So just that general, right? So for me, I feel if we can start to attract more people, and there's companies out there that are, maybe starting from scratch or doing some taking that rewrite. And there's others that are still behind the times. I think it's a general statement. It's not everybody, but there's just in general, we're still a little behind the times, and we need to innovate, and we need to get to the current. One of the things that, and I don't know if this is going to come up, Brian, but what are some of the challenges that we have? And to me, the challenges are the integrations. So, we all say we integrate. We're all like, oh yeah, we all integrate. We can talk to anybody, but you have to speak the same language. So SOAP, you mentioned, right? Well, not everyone speaks SOAP. So you might be like, well, my data's free, I can do it. But you can't if you don't speak SOAP. I know of another vendor that uses JSON. So that's a more, again, I'm just throwing out terms, doesn't really matter, but that's one of the more current ones. But they can't format it right. It's an ill-formatted JSON packet. Any piece of software out there will give you the JSON software packet formatted properly. So I don't even get that, but that's what we get. In addition, just to kind of play it all out, what we end up getting is a JSON packet that has 1,000 rows. And in that 1,000 rows, I have to one by one go back and call their API to take an action. So I'm limited to 1,000. I have more than 1,000 parkers. So you can see this is going in a loop. And then one month we discovered that, in fact, we have a limit on the number of APIs we can call. It's a random limit, right? But it's a limit. So there, again, we're having that problem in integration.
Yeah.
And so as I'm trying to say, I'm going to take some data from vendor A and give it to vendor B, frequently, I need to be in the middle, not just from a, hey, can you guys make it happen, but also from a writing some middleware. Now, all's not lost, right? So the middleware that we write really helps, if you were in James' presentation earlier, the hard part that you talked about was the getting the two companies to work together, right? The testing, the phone calls, and all that stuff that has to happen. Well, imagine, right, I work for OSU, so that's a big one, and then name any other big parking company, and trying to get them to work together is on their timeframes is extremely difficult, right? So if OSU makes a change to the file that says who can buy what permit, and my permitting software isn't ready for it, or vice versa, right? I get in trouble. So writing that middleware, taking that into your own hands is a way. So now if OSU makes those changes, I can deal with the OSU changes on my priority, and then I can give it to any permitting vendor on their priority when they're ready. So a few things, but that's really the challenges, I think.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll get to the gaps a little bit later, but what I heard mainly is a software mindset and a troubleshooting mindset around trying to scope the specific problem and then bring the tools necessary, because you made a point early in your introduction that sometimes it's human, it's not technology that you're solving the problem with, right? That's good. Okay. James, how about you? You're only 6 months in. You're still a little wet behind the ears from a parking perspective, but you've got lots of technology experience. So take me through now what your day-to-day looks like, and how your previous experience is shaping how you see the parking world.
It's very similar to Bob in many ways, where I feel like I'm coming from an industry that's a little further ahead of where parking's at. And so it feels a little bit like being able to see the future, where I know we're all going to end up 3 years ago because I've been there, and that makes it a little easier to find the path, right?
That's fantastic.
And in many ways, I think the parking industry is in a state of transition as we bring on more technology and the world evolves around us. And then Parker is in a state of transition as well, which I think from our conversation is a good part about why you hired me. But Parker technology is growing from just sort of tech-enabled services, where we're a services company with a lot of technology that makes it all work, to in many ways becoming a technology first company where we are licensing our software, where AI will likely be at the forefront of what we do. And that is a lot of technology. And that involves us making a lot of changes to grow up as a company, to grow our technology team, to grow our processes. You mentioned attracting talent. Like, one of the things we have to change at Parker is the way we deploy software, where it's not always late at night so we don't interrupt people. We have to make major investments to improve that, because I have to hire people. And if I want to go hire the best, I can't say, well, you got to stay up late every week. Like that, they just say no. Like, I don't have to do that at other places. And it's making those kinds of investments in our teams, in our infrastructure, so we can compete for that talent and not ask them to stay up late past their bedtime. So just, but like that philosophy times 30 things, right?
Yeah.
And same in parking, where I come from a world where APIs are published on websites and with test data, and you can just sign up for a credential and build an integration and launch it and never have to talk to that company, never have a phone call, never ask for permission. It's all right there and publicly available. And then coming from the parking industry, we're still in the state of transition where we're all used to hugging the data nice and tight and keeping it secret. And yeah, I'll let you in if you know the special handshake. And we've met at conferences for the last decade, and I know your kids. Like, then we can talk, right? And so we're transitioning a bit to the point of here are the API docs. Here is how you log in, and here's how we can work together. And that transparency isn't just on the technical side, but if you're a customer and they publish their API docs, that means you can go look at those docs and you can be like, this is how we can talk to each other, right? This is what they can do. You don't have to just trust what the salespeople say they can do. You can actually see it in the docs because you can read it. And we're in, I think, in the midst of that transition. So,
yeah. Oh, that's good. Okay. So any riffing off of what he just said, and if I could make one point, what I love, I hadn't thought about it this way, but you can actually see the future, right? If you're in parking. So Bob, I wonder how true that feels for you also.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I feel like, the problems that we're facing now, we've faced already. Know how to solve them, just have to get there to solve them, right? It's very, I mean, I've had to rewrite software from into a new language with, of course, features and all, but just because I couldn't get people to come back and code in the language that we coded in, right? As I talked about earlier with like COBOL. Yeah, the only thing I think that James got wrong is that I don't think we're keeping the software developers up. I think we're taking them away from their gaming. At least the developers I want. So,
fair enough. Okay, that's funny. All right. So now you started. So obviously we prepped a little bit for this, and one of the things that I thought was so striking in the presentation that I saw, and then Sarah Choops, that works for you, said it during our little 5-minute ditty on the podcast. And she talked about how maddening the gaps are between the solutions. So we've got all the parking vendors have solutions. And it does this, and it does that, and it does this. But there's inevitably this little gray area in between the student with the extra heavy backpack that has this special car, whatever. I'm making dumb things up. And so I wonder how are you managing the gaps?
Yeah. So I have a small team, but one of the people on my team is a software architect. And so he's able to create the glue that I sometimes need. So he's able to write little programs that we're able to use to get that gap closed. Like I talked about earlier, like just a way to think about it is, I'm open. You can interface with me all you want, but I speak German. And you can interface with him all you want, but he speaks French. So now how are we going to get that, right? How are we going to do that translation? What's the Rosetta Stone that we need to get these two together? And then again, sometimes the togetherness is, I'll just say somewhat hokey, right? Like running a report, not on a real date, but on a relative date. So there's a vendor that I'm aware of that when you go to ask for the report, you ask for today or yesterday or last week, all relative. I can't ask for, hey, can you give it to me from this date on, right? So you just kind of go, okay. Almost why, but you say, all right, it's legacy. It's that technical debt we talk about, but now it's not serving my needs. If I miss yesterday for whatever reason, maybe the network connection was down, how do I go back and get 2 days ago? Because that word doesn't exist. Yesterday exists, today exists, last week exists, right? But 2 days ago doesn't exist. So it's just when we start to think about things like that, right? Whether it's the different languages or the different ways we have to get stuff. I mean, if it feels weird, it is weird, right? And we don't do this anymore. I mean, the same company, I have to pull, so I have to go ask for a file name after I get it. I said, what's the file name I'm going to get? And then I have to pull for the existence of the file until I get it. We haven't done that since probably before James was born. So it's really, it's just things like that, right?
Yeah.
That I think my history helps me with, I understand that problem set, and we're able to do something. Not like a new kid coming in might be like, well, what is an FTP file transfer? Like, I don't get it because we don't use it anymore in modern times outside of parking. So, yeah.
That's hysterical.
It's the equivalent of putting $5 into a box and pushing it through. It's the technology equivalent of that. And that's, so again, that's some of the areas where, again, not everybody, right? But I mean, I'm listing out a bunch, right? And these are a lot of different vendors that are in this world.
Yeah. That's great. James, what's your perspective of the gaps? Maybe gaps, if I could lead the witness a little bit. You're 6 months in, so Bob sees gaps. I suspect you see overlap or redundancy or maybe opportunities to make it more smooth or streamlined with a single thing in the middle.
I think all of the above. Obviously, there's some gaps. When I first joined the company, Brian, you and I walked the NPA trade show floor together, and you were just talking to me. And it was fascinating to me how many companies do the exact same thing, right? And I think we all know that. We've all been talking about it, and there's been mergers and probably will be continued stuff in the industry, but coming from this sort of SaaS, B2B SaaS world where everyone's niching down as hard as they can, be like, this is what we do, right? And then at the top, there are some global players who do everything poorly. In our industry, I think is still in that nascent phase where we're exploring what does this mean? There is a bunch of overlap and there is a bunch of gaps. And I think in many ways, maybe to your point, that's where Parker can help, right? Is we are an exception in the technical terms. We're an exception handling company. We handle exceptions, things that fall through gaps. And the gap may be the motorist's knowledge. It might be the motorist's ability to read signs or lack thereof. It might be a technical problem or a equipment problem. But in many ways, like, you always need some kind of backstop when there is a gap, and that's what Parker can do. And I think that's what we expect and hope to do more in the future is increase the coverage of those gaps that we provide.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Okay. I think you would all be disappointed. I think everybody would be disappointed if we didn't talk about the now famous buzzword AI. And so I wonder, Bob, if you could give us a perspective on how you're dabbling or how you think about AI from an operations and from a product and from a solutions perspective.
Yeah. So, we talk about some mantras, right? Like we heard some of Scott's mantras, right?
Uh-huh.
So, for me, it's don't be a solution looking for a problem, right? So everybody comes to me with all this cool stuff. Hey, check this out, Bob. Hey, isn't this neat? Yeah, it's neat, but it doesn't solve any of my problems, right? So make sure that you have a problem first. And it doesn't have to be a problem. It could be a customer experience you want to improve upon. It could be operational excellence, operational efficiency, right? But you need to have something that you say, hey, I want to try to find something to help me with this. And that something may be AI. Maybe. We've done a lot. I mean, stuff that I know that James and I have done in the last decade are today called AI. Just wasn't the buzzword back then, right? But now it's all AI, right? So I'd say don't get sucked into the buzzword. So I went to a presentation. The guy said, if you're not looking at AI right now, then you're going to fall behind the times and basically your company's going to die. That's a little true. And what I mean by that is be aware of what's going on, but don't feel like you're forced to implement it. Just be aware of it because you need to have a problem to solve. For me, in our company, we started looking at it from our customer service perspective. So just a little bit of knowledge on Ohio State's campus. We have 17 garages. We have 162 flat lots. We span 2.5 square miles, and we have 37,000 parking spaces. Of those, I have 17 parking types: disability, motorcycle, West Campus A, Central Campus A, right? They go all the way. And then I also have, so I have 17 types, and I have about 60 permits, 60 different permits for those 17 parking types across 37,000 spaces across lots and garages. So you can imagine when I'm hiring my customer service rep at $18 an hour, they're really not, they're kind of confused, right? On how do I sell a permit? What do I do here, right? So we look to say, hey, maybe we can use AI as a way of being an internal chatbot to help our team while they're on the phone calls. Okay, yeah, they'll become more efficient. It is a complex system. I might be able to simplify my training, right? So a lot we looked at. For us, the problem was our website, which holds all this information, wasn't consumable by any of the AI agents out there, right? And it has to do with having folds or having pictures. I mean, there's a lot about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't consumable. So that's where we stopped. So what we've then done is shifted gears and said, let's start creating documentation, including the website, but also in training, that is AI consumable so that we can then continue to progress. You know, when I look at AI, I say the first thing that you need is, and I said it, is you need a vision, right, of what you want to do. What am I trying to solve? An objective in there. Then the next step is to make sure that your data is good. That's where we failed. We stopped, right? Data. Next one is to get a good use case, what you want to be able to do, right? Then start looking at the tools, right? There's a whole, everybody, I just read something in LinkedIn today that, who is it? Somebody else now has a new AI engine. Everybody has an AI engine now, right? So, but some are better at things than others. So, when you're looking to get your headshot looking all pretty, right? To get the moneymaker looking good, you can use a specific AI generator or tool for that, right?
Yeah.
Versus maybe one that can create a presentation out of bullet points versus one. But all of this is just workplace productivity.
Yeah.
This isn't stuff that I'm throwing out into my company yet. And I would just kind of finish with, I would pick something, it's going to sound stupid. It's high value, low risk. Well, of course, everything, but low risk, right? Think about low risk. Don't jump into this too quickly. It's still in its infancy.
Yeah.
So be aware, have a problem set, and then kind of just stick a toe in. It's okay to stick a toe in the water, right? And so that's my, I don't know, maybe $1.75.
That was at least $2.50.
Well, have you found anything to fix your headshot yet, or no?
We've got
what it's called is a black circle.
It's a black circle. Okay, so James, I'm making an observation from the my office that's 15 feet away from yours, right? As you would show me things in the last 6 months, and it seemed like you, for good reasons, changed platforms or changed directions like 2 or 3 times to sort of underscore what Bob is saying, right? That you've got to dabble and there's got specific tools for specific things. So maybe take us through what you've learned in the last 6 months, because it felt like some things that you thought were going to work out fell short, and then it changed your direction completely. So where are you with your choices?
Man, there's a lot to unpack there. I've learned a lot. There's a lot more left to learn. There's a lot this technology can't do yet, and there's a lot that I think is completely going to change the world just as it is today. The ability for generative AI's natural language processing to understand, generate, and understand how we communicate as humans is breathtaking, and yet it still makes a gazillion mistakes. So a large part of our job as technologists is figuring out the right way to integrate, the right place, time, and manner in which to integrate. Because you can integrate and use AI at many different technical levels. There are companies you can find, and you can hand these companies $100,000 and they will do it all for you. And then you can go hire a team of PhD engineers and they will do it all for you. And then there's a whole spectrum in the middle. And what in many ways my job is to find that spot in the middle that's right for Parker Technology. And yeah, we've tried a bunch of stuff. Some of it has worked, some of it hasn't. And even within our technology choices, there's all sorts of model choices and intelligence choices. I was telling someone at lunch today at the conference that I had to turn up the intelligence on our voice AI system. I started with a 15 cents a minute kind of voice AI system. And it was very good at the basic sort of FAQ, read a brochure questions. And I asked it to fill out a form for me. And it did pretty good. It started filling out the form. And then it would just skip a field. It was like, no, we're good. I don't need your last name. I got your first name. That's good enough. And I'm like, what the heck? And it worked 80% of the time. Like 80% of the time doesn't cut it. I need like 99.9% of the time. And there's, a multitude of different ways I could solve this problem. The one I decided to press at the time was, well, I'm just going to get a smarter AI engine. So I turn it up. I'm saying, give me your smartest AI engine. And that worked. It did it. It just costs $60 an hour to run that system when it's up. And a lot of time it's not even up. So some of the dials we can press are things like that. And it's just finding the right combination. There's all sorts of choices in just the way voice AI works. For many years, voice AI has been done in a 3-stage model where the first stage is you go speech to text, and then you go text to AI, and then you go text back to speech. That's great. It's just slow, and you lose a lot of information along the way. If you can work with the latest state-of-the-art models, you're going voice to voice, and they intuitively understand voice communication I don't even know the right words to say. They're not translating your voice into text. They're just listening to your words and know what those words mean in English. And so they pick up sarcasm and jokes and emotion at a level that a speech-to-text, text-to-speech engine can't. But then they're also sort of dumb. So and they struggle with accents more, and they're just not the best. So it's trying to find the right situation, the right tools, using the right way at the right time. There's a lot. Everything changes every month. So
Every month, literally.
Every month, everything's new.
Yeah. I think I remember a couple of the conversations we had, because I could feel you trying to figure out the right solution and then trying to find the right timing so that you could delay because you knew something new was coming. And then that made me think about Bob and his COBOL, right? I literally told James several times, James, the world is still running on COBOL. Nobody can work on it, but it's still running on COBOL. It's okay to pick a technology and go. Let's just try it. Just trying to take the pressure off. So it's hard. You got to make decisions and just know that you're probably going to throw it away, frankly. All right. Are there any questions out there? You guys have questions? I'm dominating the conversation, and I realize we're in front of a live audience, so you should be allowed to ask questions. Maybe I will cue you up to say, now you're allowed to ask questions. Let me ask, I'll find one more, and then maybe that'll spur somebody on. Yeah.
Yeah, no, before I joined Parker, I was an AI consultant. And I do truly believe that if your business doesn't deeply understand the ramifications of generative AI, you are at serious risk for being left behind. Now, that doesn't mean every business is going to be left behind, and every business, to Bob's point, doesn't need a generative AI. But if you don't think about it, if you don't know, then you're just sort of hoping for the best, right? It's going to change a lot of businesses and a lot of stuff. So for, I think, Parker Technology specifically, voice AI gives us the ability to expand our service offering in a way that would be uneconomical for us to do long term. It allows us to deliver a faster service, an always on service. Brian bragged this morning about our average queue time of 10 to 13 seconds. I mean, I don't even know where that average comes from, because when I look at the queue, it's about 2 seconds. But so during peak times, we must get a little backed up, but most of the time we are super fast. But we can cut that time, that 10 to 13 seconds down to 0 with voice AI, right? We can get motorists out of the gate and keep your operations moving more smoothly with AI if we do it correctly, and we pick the right times and we pick the right thing. So one of the advantages we have is that we have a database of 5-10 million call records, and including those transcripts if we need them, right? We have all this metadata and information that we can crunch, compile, feed into AI if we need to, that helps us figure out not just how to train AI better, but where to put it. Where does it make the most sense? What problems are solvable with today's AI and which are not? and then what's likely to be solvable down the road, what's most useful to solve now. We have that information, and that's not information. If you're trying to spin this up on your own without that data set, it's going to be much harder. So that's where I feel like we have a major advantage, is we can be much more intelligent about how we deploy these technologies because we have all of that data in the background.
But you also, you bring up a use case.
Yeah.
Right. Which is, again, that's the most important
Yeah.
piece, right? That I have a use case that is valid. So generative AI, right, is AI that can learn on its own. So we call it generative. And you feed it bad data and you get bad results. Right. So, I was literally at a conference where we asked the top 10 Chicago Cubs. Joe DiMaggio was number 9. Right. Joe DiMaggio didn't play for the Cubs. Right.
Yeah.
But it was because people were able to add in that data. And so in adding in that data, now that's what they pick up. I talked about a few things with AI just around doing it, but one of the other things that becomes really important is your data governance, right? So that you don't get Joe DiMaggio playing for the Cubs, and how you do releases. So we're cautious anyway, right? We're technologists. We know how to do releases. We're cautious. They have to go through the test lab and all this stuff. But generative AI can have a different answer every time. So you really have to think about not just using it, but how am I going to deploy updates, right? It becomes more difficult even for me right now, right? Like when I start to think about it, I'm like, this is not the paradigm that I'm used to. So what am I going to be able to do in order to maintain integrity while still being able to use this technology?
That makes me think about one of the key things that you were worried about, and it's our ability to test if the machine is going to be reliable. And it's shocking to me that you could get a different answer because, again, you're back to, especially, an engineer's perspective is repeatability.
I've got an example similar to Bob's that will pertain to the current environment. I know this is a podcast and people will listen to it in the future, but right now the Pacers are playing the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Championship right now. And if you go into Google and you ask Google who won the 2025 Eastern Conference Championship, maybe they fixed it, but last week you could put that into Google. And Google's got an AI summary, and it will tell you when the games are because it knows the schedule. And it will say, like on May, what's the date?
28th.
It'll say on Friday, May 30th, the New York Knicks clinched the 2025 Eastern Conference Championship. Because it has the data. It knows when the schedule is. It knows what the experts picked. And it just made up the damn result. It just made it up, which is not how it's going to happen. And hopefully data shows that when this goes out.
Big old
but it just it literally printed the winner, right, in the summary. And
Wow.
it hasn't even happened yet. But I see that same kind of thing happen in my testing all the time. One of the problems that we have with generative AI technology is that, as Bob alluded to, it's a guessing machine. It guesses things. And most of the time it guesses right. Sometimes it guesses wrong. But whichever way it guesses, it has 100% confidence that it guessed right. It doesn't have the ability to be like, that was a guess that was 50-50 versus a guess that was 95-5. It doesn't know. All of its guesses are 100%. It got the right answer. So if we're talking about voice AI technology in a parking garage environment, and the motorist said Maria, and the AI thought she said Mary. Unlike a human will be able, humans know that, hey, a truck just rolled by, that I'm having a hard time hearing this motorist through this microphone system already. Like, I can tell we've got a bad audio connection. A human understands that I'm not confident in that answer. I can ask her to repeat it, or I can repeat it back to her. AI doesn't do that intuitively. AI is like, oh, I definitely heard her say Mary every time. She's definitely a Mary. I know it. And so that's one of the problems you have AI is like, I either have to have AI assume it has zero confidence all the time. Be like, I heard you say your name was Mary. Can you repeat that? M-A-R-Y, right? I have to do that everything a motorist says. Or I have to have it assume, or maybe I pay money for a smarter engine, or I wait till AI gets better, right? Those are things like we're wrestling with in the real world, just the nature of the technology. On one hand, it changes every assumption I've ever had about the way technology can work. And on the other hand, it still confuses Maria and Mary all the time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think we're coming down to the wire here, right? We get 3:15 as a break, so 7 minutes.
Okay.
Questions? All right. I have one more for you. So knowing that we have 7 minutes, Bob, tugging on my ear, what are you optimistic about as it relates to the technology, the use of technology in parking? What are you most optimistic about?
I think that there's disruptors out there. So I'm really excited about some of the companies coming up that are disrupting the old school way. I think some of it's inherent, I'd say, in that, parking was about, the cigar box and the gate, and it really wasn't about the software, which is really the technology we're talking about here, right? The relays, that technology hasn't changed and it works, right? So you have the hardware companies that are creating software, and it's working for a while, but now as the evolution is happening faster and they have technical debt, when we get these software first companies starting up into the parking industry, they don't have the technical debt. They have the they understand the current innovations in technology and how to release software and software processes, because they're software first. So it's not an afterthought. And I think that those companies are coming in to disrupt. I think even when I started about 8 years ago, nobody wanted to come into the parking, really, right? Like there was a couple of players coming in and out, but no one really came in and had the fortitude to stay. But I'm starting to see that change. So that's kind of exciting me. I think there's a few companies out there that are really innovating and innovating well. And so hopefully that becomes now the norm as we go forward.
All right. I like that answer. James, what do you think?
I think my answer is very similar. It's easy for me to come in and be like, hey, haha, I saw the future. But the reality is we got time, right? Like we're dealing with equipment that lasts a decade, with cars that last 20 years and garages that were built. Like this doesn't have to be leading the future of technology. There's no rush. We can get it right. We can do our normal cycles. Companies are changing. We see that in our partners. We see that at the trade shows, right? There is a lot of time to get this right, to make the right choice for our customers, for the motorist. And I think, I don't know, I feel like just optimistic about the industry as a whole. We're figuring it out. These are hard things to do. Parking is way harder and more complicated than I ever thought.
Yes, it is.
It's not easy. It is harder than it looks, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to take some time to bring technology to bear, AI and non-AI technology across the entire industry. But we're all moving in the right direction and trying to do the right things. And we'll get there. It's going to be fun.
That's great. Okay.
I think also, I'm sorry, when you talked about the pairing, right?
Yeah.
So bringing in non-parking people in the industry that I have. When I first came here, again, it was my first foray into parking, and I'd be like, hey, why don't we just do this? Well, you can't. Well, why not? Right? Well, it leaves open tickets or does whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, for us, we were lucky, or not lucky, I mean, it was by design, but, I got paired with Sarah, who has, 20 years of parking experience, if not more, right? I think it's actually more. Nicely 20 years. So
20.
Right. So having that combination really does work. It allows us to innovate. It allows us to really think outside the box and then still have the guardrails of, but this is what you can't do in parking. Like, I'd be like, yellow lines are just suggestions, right? Apparently they're not. So who knew? But just back to what you started with. I mean, it really does, so as you're thinking about that in your industry, right? So if you're the parking person, get the non-parking person. If you're the non-parking person, think about getting a parking person, right?
Yeah.
And really that combination can help us grow.
Tight integration, experience with outside experience. I love it. Okay. Anybody else who here in the room is really optimistic about technology and parking? Okay. All right. You were slow to react. All right. I'm going to register that as unanimous. That everybody is optimistic. Yeah, exactly. That everybody is optimistic about the application of technology in parking.
Here.
All 1 million people here. It's a live stadium audience. All right. I think we'll wrap it right there. Bob, thank you very much. Yeah. James, thank you. Let's keep going. All right. And we're out. That's a wrap on this episode of Harder Than It Looks, Parking Uncovered, presented by Parker Technology. Please leave us a review if you liked what you heard. Make sure you tune in next month as we continue to uncover tips, tricks, and best practices to manage what we all know is harder than it looks: parking a car. Bye for now.